Welcome everybody to this webinar. The way I want to proceed with this webinar is that you are in charge. So you, the audience, are in charge. Craig Sr. has helped me out in master control. I'm encouraging you to throw out questions whenever you think of them. And Craig, if you'd be so kind as to pass them on to me so that I could see them or understand them, and then we'll address them as we go along. So something comes up, if the slide or the conversation triggers a question, please bring it forward, because I don't want you to sit there and just going through a bunch of slides that don't mean anything to you. That being said, let's get into the presentation. Make your meetings magical. I'm sure if we ask everyone to raise their hand and say if they've been in a boring Toastmasters meeting, the answer is going to be yes, they probably have been. But the purpose of this presentation is to help everyone get some good tips and tricks on how to make their meetings more lively and engaging. So what we're going to cover today is preparation, so how to prepare for a meeting, what to do during a meeting, some tips and tricks on how to make your meetings more engaging, and of course questions. But as I said before, if you have questions, don't wait until the question period, just throw them out in the comments, and Craig, I encourage you to fire them out. One of the big things of preparing a meeting is making sure everyone knows what the meeting is going to be about well enough in advance for them to come prepared. At our club, the Laval Achievers, what we do is we have an agenda like most clubs do. To make that agenda even more effective, we've prepared a Google Doc that has not only next week's meeting, but several meetings way out in advance, so people can plan when they want to do roles in advance. This way they can discuss those roles with their either meeting mentor or their mentor, their general mentor, to help them to figure out what they want to do, if they need any help, et cetera, et cetera. And we as planners, the VP of Education, can look and see in advance what's going on and determine if there's holes that need to be filled, and can prepare in advance to fill those holes. So we find this is a really good tool. And everybody in the club has access to this Google Doc. They have a link that goes out in an email every week so that they can manage this part of their experience. Templates and scripts. So this little template that you see here is a pattern for Peter Rabbit's little shirt, and that makes it easy for Peter Rabbit's mom to make lots of Peter Rabbit shirts. And for us, it means we can do a lot of really good meetings on a regular basis. Now, we've all heard a lot about mentors. There's a lot of subjects about mentoring. There's a lot of books and speeches that are pre-prepared around mentoring. In our club, we know that mentors sometimes are hard to come by, and asking for someone to commit to be a mentor sometimes can be a challenge. But what we've done is we've said, listen, you don't need to be a mentor for the next 3, 6, 8 months for this new member. You can be a mentor even for a meeting. So let's say you're really good at doing the timer role, and a newish member is taken on or put their hand up to be a timer. Well, you as an experienced timer can sit next to that person during the meeting and basically just coach them through the role for their first time. And that qualifies you to be a mentor. The idea is that everyone who knows a little bit more than the next person can coach them. And we find that once people are eased into that role, it helps them, you know, in the future to take on more and more mentoring roles. So that's something that we find to be very expensive, to be very effective. In order to make your club meaningful to the people who belong to the club, you have to know what your club is all about. And I know Jim Carty's done a lot of work around creating profiles of your club so that your club basically has a theme. And I think that's very important because it helps everyone, not just the VP of Education, but it helps everyone to plan accordingly and plan along the theme of your club. For example, the Laval Achievers Club, we specialize in helping non-Anglophone speakers better allocate in English. And we have a reputation, and people seek us out who are looking to improve their English public speaking skills. Now, I'm not saying that our roles, our roster is busting at the seams, but it certainly helps when we have to discuss and talk to people about what our club's raison d'etre is. and that helps. So my suggestion to you, and I think the district is doing a lot of work around that as well, is to help you decide, help you define who your club serves. Now that can be done with surveys, questionnaires, discussion, meetings, in terms of like, decide what is it that you want your club to be doing and how you want your club to serve its members. And once you've got a good idea what that is, then you can start to build your club themes, your club meetings, your special events around that topic, around that theme. Preparation. This ties very nicely into the previous slide, when you've got to get creative. So let's say you've decided to do what we've done, and I'll stick to our theme of being about helping non-allophones speak publicly in English. We create different themes, like around pronunciation. We take themes around different languages that are in the club, represented in a club. We've got at least 9 or 10 different languages represented in our club. Those types of things help us to create special events. And you can do it in your club too. It's not difficult. You can use holidays. You can use characters like Disney characters or superheroes or whatever you think is interesting, to create theme meetings around, to be able to create a little bit of energy. And those are also good opportunities to invite guests to your club. And having guests in your club is what it's all about, because guests might become members, and at the very least, guests will tell other people about what a great time they had at your club, and that should bring in even more guests. And then, of course, later members. Now we're going to get into some of the meat and potatoes of what Toastmasters is all about with regards to creating more interesting and innovative meetings. We've got dozens of educational programs, educational presentations that Toastmasters has put a lot of work into developing, and it's a win-win situation when you can invite experienced Toastmasters who are perhaps going for their GTMs, who need to deliver some of these higher end presentations to get their accreditation, but the club benefits because now they get an experienced member delivering educational material that will help make your club better. And why I say that is because some of the topics that some of these advanced series are about are finding new members, evaluate to motivate, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, and creating the best club climate. We all know what we want in terms of making our clubs better, but we also need guidance as to how to do it. You can't just wing it. You've got to follow the instructions, because these instructions have been developed over the almost 100-year history of Toastmasters. So use the material, invite experienced members to come in and give these presentations. You're helping them and you're helping the club. Now we're talking about evaluations. And I'm sure everyone's gone through this, where a speaker gives their presentation and the evaluator stands up and basically reads out the stuff that's in the manual and just says that they did a great job and I have no points of improvement for you. You did great. Fantastic job. Can't wait to hear your next presentation. That does not help anyone in the club. Certainly doesn't help the speaker, and it certainly doesn't help anyone listening. And we're not trying to find fault with those evaluators. What we're trying to do is to give them better tools in order to make more effective evaluations. And in those advanced speeches that we talked about, there are specific guidelines on how to give a proper evaluation. And going through those in your club will help all members of your club to develop as better evaluators. And the end result being that if a member, especially a new member, gets good feedback that helps them see real improvement quickly, well, that will send a signal to everyone in that person's network that Toastmasters works and that your club works. And that will lead, of course, to a better meeting, more energy, and more members, which is the goal. Holding special events, always a good idea. Don't just do the one open house a year and then maybe a contest and think that that's enough. Look for opportunities to create a special event, connect to events that are happening in your town or city, connect to world events. One thing that we organized was a live stream of the contest, of the international contest, and that brings in members, it brings in guests. It's held on a different day other than the typical Toastmasters Day, which provides some social activity. All of these things are designed to develop some camaraderie and to connect the members on a social level, which builds a better relationship within the club as a whole. So look for opportunities for you to hold special events that can create some buzz for your club. Another way to help increase the energy in your club, especially if your club is maybe flagging, is to set up joint meetings with other clubs in your area. They could be clubs that are aligned with your club. There could be sister clubs. There could be clubs maybe in the same town. For instance, we're the only Anglophone club in our area. We could join up with a Francophone club and share a meeting together. And that would be a way of creating energy between the two clubs and having a bigger meeting, which can also use this an event and invite visitors to. So that's an idea that can be used. Now we're going to get back into the creativity idea. Look for ways that you can create events around special activities. So the obvious ones are, Christmas, Valentine's Day, Halloween's coming up, but there are lots of others that can be used to help create buzz around. And the best way to know what is one that's going to turn on your members is to, of course, ask them, do surveys. Ask people, what would you like to do an event around? What subject would you like people to do an event around? If they choose the event, then there's much higher likelihood that they're going to want to get involved, participate, volunteer, etc. So again, I'll say, use your imagination and get your members involved in order to develop that theme. So here are some potential themes. Of course, Thanksgiving. You can talk about health issues or healthy living, the environment, relationships, events that are happening in the news, sports. All of these things can be used as different types of themes that you could use to generate buzz in your club. So you can have an art-themed meeting, for example, and you can create maybe a drawing exercise, whatever. Use your imagination, but the point is change it up. If it's the same thing, the same speakers, the same topics week after week, it's not going to serve your club in terms of building excitement and generating buzz. And if your club isn't exciting, people aren't going to invite guests, and that's the bottom line. This is Lise Blondin's favorite quote. If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Barney. And I think the reason why this was put in here is simply because if people are enjoying themselves at the meetings, then they'll participate. And one of the biggest reasons why we lose members is that people don't participate. They do their 10 speeches, they feel a little bit more comfortable doing public speaking, and then they bug out. And that's not what we want. So if people are enjoying themselves, if they're learning, they will keep coming back if we give them an opportunity to do so. This is a bit of a pet peeve for me. We all have friends in our clubs, and we certainly want to catch up with our friends when we see them at the clubs, but that tends to alienate or isolate newer ones, and then the cross-learning doesn't happen. So we talked a little bit about the mentoring earlier, but we go out of our way to pair up newer club members to more experienced club members so that they can walk them through the meeting, they can introduce them to their friends, they can get connected on a deeper level faster. It's those awkward first couple of months where you don't know anybody that tends to be the hardest for new members. Really, really important to go out of your way to team up with these people, avoid cliques in your club so that the new members can feel connected and feel like they belong. And the sooner you do that, the greater the chances that they'll stay longer. So that's something that you should really try to consider. So having even an informal mentor-mentee program in your club will go a long way to solving that problem. I don't know if we've got to belabor this point very much more, but the idea of connecting fun and learning is something that Ralph C. Smedley spoke a lot on. The point being is that we remember the things that we learn when we're having fun much easier than the things we're learning because we have to or when it's boring. And we know, we've heard it several times, people come to our club, oh, you guys are so much fun, you're so engaged, everyone's laughing, everyone's smiling, everyone feels comfortable. And that's a big part of making sure that you get a good recurrence rate when it comes time to renew your memberships every year or twice a year. And creating the right environment is how we do it. When you get a bunch of people together from many different backgrounds, different educations, different cultural backgrounds, there's bound to be friction from time to time. This is impossible to avoid. How you handle it, though, is going to be critical in terms of whether or not your club is going to split apart over some controversial matter that comes up. We recommend that when these types of situations happen, to nip them in the bud as soon as you possibly can. If you know that someone's having an issue with someone on the executive, or if there's members on the executive having issues, talk it out as quickly as possible, privately. Don't let the rumor mill start going. Deal with the matter outside of the club so that the problem doesn't infiltrate your club and start to divide members against each other. So, understand that everyone's point of view is as valid as everyone else's point of view. Respect your members, and try to be as amicable as you possibly can, with the underlying note, though, that you want to be flexible, but you need to respect and honor the club's bylaws and the principles of your club. You're not going to sacrifice those things just to make somebody happy or to settle a minor dispute. But again, I'll underline the fact the idea is to settle disputes when they're minor and settle them outside of the club. All right, I think everyone can relate to this problem, not having enough members. You get to your meeting and you've got 6 or 7 people on the roster, but you only have, let's say, 4 show up to take their roles. What do? One of the things that we do is, everyone's prepared to double up on roles if they need to, and we will help each other out. Don't have enough speeches? Well, do more table topics. The idea is the show must go on. You can't moan and groan about not being enough people there. People have canceled. None of that. You be prepared. You know it's going to happen. It's important to be prepared. So the Toastmaster, chairman, need to be prepared for these eventualities at the time of the meeting. Now, on the off chance that you have too many members and people are saying we don't get the opportunity to give speeches, well, there are ways to deal with that too. Sometimes we hold speech marathons. When we've got some of the roster backed up, we'll clear the schedule and we'll just do 4 or maybe 5 speeches in one night in a special event. And that's a way to get people, give people the opportunity to get their speeches done. So we're going to resume some of the tools, some of the topics that were discussed in order to help people to create magical meetings. Preparation, and I'll go back to some of the tools that we use for preparing. Lise Blondin and some of the other executives early on, they did a lot of work in preparing detailed scripts of each role. So theoretically, even someone who's never been to a Toastmasters meeting with the agenda and this script could be a Toastmaster, could be a chairman, could be a grammarian, very easily with little preparation needed because of the fact that a lot of the preparation was available in advance. We give that information out to all new members. They have links to the documents on Google Docs, and you can even download them straight from our website. So having that preparation done up front really takes a lot of the stress out of getting new members to get involved in the meeting actively very, very early on. And once that initial stress is gone, it allows them to enjoy their meeting experience much, much more. The tools and resources, make sure that everyone knows where they are. make sure where they know how to get them, make sure the links to the various pieces of information that are online are working properly, that you show them how to use them. And this will also make it much easier for them to get involved and to use them. And the tips and tricks, of course, are the things that experienced members can give to new members to, again, help them to have a better experience. And then lastly, the whole reason why we're doing this is to have fun and to learn. And if we're having fun and we're learning at the same time, then we're doing our job right. Put that all together and you have magical meetings. Now, I know some people have a few questions, so I would really like to spend some time talking about the real issues that you're facing in your clubs, so that maybe between all of us, we can share some of the secrets, some of the tips that we've been using, so that everyone can benefit. So I'm opening the floor to questions. So what do you do in your club when you've got two speakers that are on the docket and the two speakers don't show up and you've got no replacements for them? What do you do?
Well, there are different things that can be done. Well, like you mentioned before, there could be more table topics, but sometimes we always want to prepare a speech. So we always ask members to have a speech in their pocket in case that there is an opportunity for them to speak. And the other thing as well is that we can have an impromptu speech. It's not recommended to have that every meeting, but this is something that can be done and could at least, we have a speech during the meeting. Otherwise, we end up with no speech.
Excellent. Thank you, Lise. Any other suggestions?
I do. I have one.
Go for it, right?
If people are trained in 5 steps to impact, they can prepare a speech fairly quickly, so that even if they show up at the start of the meeting and the speakers have bailed, they can say, I will do a speech, and the Toastmasters say, great, what's your title? I don't know yet. And they'll be able to prepare a good enough speech during that meeting. This idea is a little more challenging under the pathway system because particular projects have particular aims, such as the research project. So it'll be a little challenging to actually research your speech during the meeting. I found this idea to be easier to do under the Competent Communicator Manual, where many speeches satisfy many speech project requirements. George, are you there still?
Yep.
Oh, he just dropped off. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One of the characteristics of meetings that I've been doing, one of the values that I've noticed that works is enthusiasm. We sort of talked about it here, and having fun. One element of fun and potential risk is allowing and encouraging people to improvisationally augment what the speaker is saying. Someone is up speaking, they're saying something, and someone from the audience will add to what the speaker is saying. Now, sometimes this is easy when the speaker is looking for a response from the audience. It's obvious, but that isn't always obvious. And sometimes the speaker is looking like they're a little stuck, looking a little nervous. And we've noticed that if people augment what the speaker is saying, it helps to put the speaker more at ease. Whereas if we're sitting in silence, staring at the speaker, that sense of holy ground when the speaker is speaking kind of stays there. The risk, of course, is that some personalities will hijack the meeting. This hasn't happened for us in 2 different clubs. Everyone that I've seen and heard do this will add, and then they will, by their silence, give the control back to the speaker. So this adds to a boisterous, fun environment, and people just have a lot of fun with it. So much so that at Blackburn, people are calling it the high point of their week, and when they can't go, they just miss it. Angel, thoughts?
Somehow I knew you were going to ask me, Craig. I'm trying to be a fly on the wall. I guess it doesn't work even in a webinar.
Well, I've visited clubs, and it's like they're at a funeral. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, is it just me or is this not fun? They just sit there in silence. I'm guessing it comes from a positive attitude of giving the people at the front space. But it doesn't come across like that. It just comes across as a mortuary. Angela, are you there still?
I am. I fully agree with that. I think we do need that fun element which was, I think, a key value of our founder. I think we do need to include it a bit more, and I think sometimes we do lose sight of it, especially when we're pressed for time. Mm-hmm. I wonder whether you, Craig, you're at an evening club and I'm at a lunch club, and I wonder whether that changes the dynamics when you're pressed for time at lunchtime.
From your experiences, have you seen or noticed or done things at your club different from anything you've heard this evening at the webinar? Anything you want to share? And people at your club go, wow.
What I find enjoyable at my club, when speakers don't show or for some reason they're not on the agenda, is to have somebody will stand up and facilitate, or it could be of topical interest, a current event. Just get a conversation, not necessarily time, not necessarily table topic, but just somebody talking about something to get the ball rolling.
So once again, that is someone getting up and facilitating a group discussion about a topic? Yeah. Cool.
Just want to add that I just had a call from George. He apologized. He just lost internet. That's why he's not on the call anymore. So,
all right.
He just presented his apologize.
All right. I just put those two items in the chat window: augment, add, and facilitation on the topic. Anyone else? How about handling of guests? How do you handle guests? And I'll give you a specific. In visiting numerous clubs, I've heard guests often being referred to by the Toastmaster as guests. Good evening. I see we have some guests here tonight. It's good to have guests. Thank you, guests, for being here. And they continuously refer to them as guests or guest. And I thought, what can we do with that? I thought, if we get as quickly as possible from the idea of the abstraction of guest to something that's meaningful for each of those people, we have something special. And what's meaningful for each of those people, I believe, is their name. So today at EDC Toastmasters, I noticed that the chair made a point of speaking with each of the guests, writing down the person's name during the meeting, using that name repeatedly. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's more human. I think it's a very great idea to do it like that, of course.
Yeah, and it seems to work.
Yeah.
Bob Lyle has his hand up. Bob.
Yes, that happened to me the day I visited the club. The chair acknowledged the guests were there, did not name them, and I suspect it's because he'd forgotten the name. This was a returning guest. The other guest was sitting next to me, so we introduced ourselves to each other. At the end of the meeting, we asked for guest comments, and he asked a comment from me, who gave my name, and the one sitting next to me gave the name, and the third person put our third guest. So I think you're right. Make a point on it. Introduce them, say something about them. I commented after the meeting that perhaps the returning guest was known to all the other people. This was a corporate club. Perhaps they all knew her, all forgot her name, but I didn't. How would have I done? So good one. Say the name.
Very good. Well, here's one thing that happened at one of our Blackburn meetings. I was curious about this whole guest thing. So I just randomly interviewed, so to speak, or chatted with one of the guests. Where are you from? How'd you find out about us? What are your hopes and dreams and all that sort of stuff. At the start of the meeting, the Toastmaster turned to them and asked them to introduce themselves to the group. I noticed the person shuffled in their seat, rubbed their thighs with their hands, and looked generally uncomfortable. So I leapt up, gave the person's name, where they worked, what they were after, their hopes and dreams from our earlier conversation. And I noticed out of my peripheral vision that the person's posture rose up, their shoulders rose up, and they sat up straight in this moment when I was talking about them. The next meeting, that person joined. One idea that we've had over the past few months is to look at every single activity that happens in the Toastmasters room as an exercise. Absolutely everything we do is an exercise, acquiring leadership and communication skills. Everything from welcoming a guest is similar to when you go to a cocktail party and you're going around chatting with people. Handling their membership application is all symbolic of excellence. So if individuals view what they're doing as an exercise through which they are acquiring skills, this is different to me from the weight of running your club better. That if they have the consciousness to step out of the moment and ask themselves, what am I learning from this? What could I be learning? What do I normally do? What could I be doing that I do elsewhere? How am I here at Toastmasters? Is that the same as I am elsewhere, say at work? And how is that working out for me? When I go into the Toastmasters room, do I sneak in, grab the agenda, and slide into my chair and put my head down? Or do I meet people? When I'm at my workplace meeting, do I do the same behavior? How's that working out for me? Am I complaining and grumbling that I'm not getting a promotion at work, yet I'm doing behaviors that don't warrant a promotion? How can I exercise them and grow them within the Toastmasters room? Everything we do, even sitting in silence, is an exercise. And we have a choice to continue doing behaviors that are supporting ourselves or to modify them. I have a tendency to think that a lot of people are simply unaware of themselves. So when we talked earlier about dealing with personal challenges or disagreements, a lot of people would shy away from that. Anyone want to put their hands up? Most people shy away from it. But if you view that interaction as a leadership exercise, I believe it changes it. Suddenly it's, what can I do here to make this good for everybody? What can I do here to turn what's perceived to be a negative into a positive? Is this skill useful back at work? Any thoughts on that? Well, it comes from a book that someone wrote back in the 70s. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And me personally, I don't necessarily think that how we do one thing is how we do everything, but I do think how we do one thing could be how we're doing many things. And we need to continuously check in on that. Take having fun meetings, for example. Yeah, we want to have fun meetings. And you go to a meeting and the meeting wasn't much fun. We go home, we complain about it wasn't very much fun. So my question to everyone knowing that it's an exercise, therefore it's an exercise in creating a fun meeting. What are you individually, what is everyone individually doing to create a fun meeting that everyone else wants to go to? If you are going to get fun, from whom are you going to get it? It's either from someone else or it's from yourself. You have a choice. You can either wait for someone else to provide it and be thankful for when it shows up, or you can create the fun you're looking to experience. Might this idea be helpful to all of your clubs?
Yes, Craig. Sorry, not very articulate tonight.
Very good.
Oh.
All righty. Well, I think we're drawing close to our time. I've run out of impromptu ideas to add.
Thank goodness we had you.
The next webinar is next week. It's Créer de la magie dans vos réunions, creating magical meetings en français. So that'll be led by Lise Blondin. Tremendous webinar. So invite folks out to that and let's have some more fun. Thank you all for being here. Tell others about it. Share it with your clubs. And remember, the webinar will be available on the website.
I have a question. You mean that all prior webinars, we can watch them on the district website?
Yes.
Okay, because I missed the one from Katri and I was so sorry. Okay, so I'll go and watch it. That's a very good. Thank you.
Very welcome.
So thank you for taking over for George. Like I mentioned, he was sorry. He was felt really bad. And